In this video, I'm going to teach you how to manifest anything that you want in an effortless way, because that's what it is. That's actually the secret to creating anything you want, is you take a psychological journey. You don't take a physical journey. You don't look at manifestation or getting the things that you want in life at a distance from you. You're separating yourself when you look at it in the physical realm, which is an illusion, because your 3D world is just a hologram. It doesn't even exist. And if you're looking at it as if it is real, like it's a solid reality, that's what's pushing your manifestations away. And that's the secret to the law of assumption, because a mere assumption is a psychological journey to your wish fulfilled, because the real world is the psychological world. It's an invisible world. It's a subjective world. That is the world that's being projected from inside of you out, and it's shooting out like a hologram and creating this illusion of a solid reality that you're living in right now. And if your ideas and your reactions are being dictated by this illusion of a solid reality, that's why your manifestations aren't coming into fruition or coming into your life, is because you are separating yourself from your manifestations because you think the world that you're living in is real. And the moment that you turn within and you start realizing that the real world is actually within you and that creation is finished, you will no longer have these blocks with your physical reality, or the so-called physical reality of the three-dimensional space, because that is what the law of assumption is. The law of assumption is a psychological journey. You're assuming something to be done already psychologically, not physically, not in the artificial solid reality that you're living in right now, but psychologically. You're taking a psychological journey, which is a mere assumption, to the end result, and then allowing it to come to you through your new concept of yourself based on this psychological journey that you just took. Because when you go on a psychological journey and assume something to be true, it automatically changes you within, and you start projecting a different world, a different space, a different hologram, a different high-tech simulated game, and it changes your identity once you take a psychological journey to your wish fulfilled, because it's already complete. You no longer have any fear or attachment because you've already seen that it's finished in the psychological world, in the real world. In the real world, you've already seen your manifestation take place, and it's already done. And you know that, and you believe that, because you know that the world, the three-dimensional world, is a hologram. It's a high-tech simulation. It's not even real. And you know this, and you believe this, and you understand this, that the real world is psychological, and it's being pushed out of you. The world is you pushed out into this hologram of space, this high-tech simulated game, and you know that. And you know that. So when you make a mere assumption of already having something, that is the real world. You already have it. And then your actions are dictated based on the new version of you that you've created by seeing the end. You no longer have fear. You no longer care whether you fail or you succeed. You've already seen it. You don't have any attachment to any result because you already have it. It's already yours. You've already connected with it, and you know that the three-dimensional world is just a hologram, and it's not even real. And if it's not producing the effect that you've seen in your mind in the psychological world, that means that it's just coming. It hasn't come to you yet, and that's fine. But you know that it's coming. You know that it's coming, and you believe that because you understand that the world you're living in is a hologram. And it's all being created from within you, in the psychological world being pushed out. So wherever you travel psychologically, and you feel the end psychologically, subjectively, that is the real world. And that has to take place. If you stay faithful to that belief and you understand that the world you're living in is a hologram, just being projected from inside of you, you're being pushed out. All of your thoughts, all of your mental images, your inner dialogues, your feeling states are all being pushed out and creating this hologram of a space that you're living in that most people think is a solid reality, but it's not. But it's not. So take a psychological journey through the effortless way of least action, the principle of least action. And that's where we're going to jump into Neville Goddard's chapter 14, the effortless way, the principle of least action. This is so important. And that's why I wanted to give that summary of this chapter and break this down. And I'm going to do more of this. I'm going to break this down even further as we go through this short chapter. But by the end of this video, if you pay attention and you understand this and you apply this and watch this video as many times as you need to understand this, You will be able to manifest anything that you want in your life and change your concept of yourself and learn how to travel psychologically to your wish fulfilled, and then feel it change the conception of yourself in this psychological journey, changing you, then pushing out a different space, a different hologram, a different life. You will create an entirely different life if you start applying these psychological journeys in your mind, which is right here, the effortless way, what Neville Goddard covers. It's the principle of least action, which governs everything in physics, from the path of a planet to the path of a pulse of light. Least action is the minimum of energy multiplied by the minimum of time. Therefore, in moving from your present state to the state desired, you must use the minimum of energy and take the shortest possible time. And that is, you don't travel in the physical world, in the three-dimensional world, the hologram. Because everything you've been trained to believe is that there needs to be a sequence of events that need to take place, and time needs to exist, and all these obstacles need to exist in order to get to that end result. So what that's doing is it's pushing it away from you, and you're not able to take a physical journey to that end and feel the end result. If you take a physical journey, your mind is going to have blocks. It's not going to believe that can happen. But when you change all this, when you use the minimum of energy and take the shortest possible time, that is a psychological journey. You're doing that in your imagination. You're taking a psychological journey to the end and disregarding your three-dimensional world, which is a hologram, and understanding that it's a hologram. And then feeling the end result, and then detaching yourself from that result because you've already seen it and you know that this is just a high-tech simulated game that we're living in. And that's another big part about manifestation and creating and manifesting anything that you want into your world, is understanding this, and keep this in the back of your mind, and understanding that the three-dimensional world, everything you see when you wake up in the morning, you open your eyes, you're hearing things, you're tasting things, you're touching things, that is not the solid reality. That is not a solid reality. You do not have to depend on your solid reality and react to your solid reality that this is the way that it has to be. It's not the way that it has to be, and that's not the real world. The real world is coming from within you, being projected out, being pushed out of you through the psychological world, the subjective world. That's the real world. And you got to keep this in the back of your mind and keep studying this, and so that way it becomes a belief within you. It becomes this new belief where you no longer react to the bad things that are, the negative things that are happening in your life. You're no longer reacting to those because you know they're not real. And somehow you created those from within you with your inner dialogue. Something created this reality in the hologram, and you've created it, but it's not real, and you know that. And you know you can change it at any time by taking a psychological journey, by taking a mere assumption of the end of the new life that you want. And you go to the end and you feel that, whatever that may be. Like, you can do different things at a time. You can create a new physique. You can create health. You can create wealth. See yourself in the end result, and it changes your identity. It changes your concept of yourself. Like, I did this recently with my body transformation, working on the channel and running different businesses all the time. I let my body go. I stopped working out. I wasn't even focused on it at all. I let it go because I had other visions in my mind. But I pulled back. I noticed that my body just wasn't the way that I wanted it to be. And I started noticing this, looking at myself in the mirror and just saying, yeah, I'm not really confident. I'm not really happy with myself. But this is just a hologram, though. So what I'm seeing is a hologram. So I'm going to take a psychological journey. I'm going to see myself, every time I look in the mirror, I'm going to see myself with the physique that I want. I want to see that. So I took a psychological journey, and I saw myself with the body that I wanted very, very quickly to transform. And when I did this, I noticed all these other things start happening. And every time I looked in the mirror, I saw that, and I disregarded what was actually there. And I saw this vision of myself in the psychological world. And I imagined it as I was going to sleep at night. I'm imagining this new body that I have. And within 90 days, without really changing my diet whatsoever, my diet was completely the same as it was before. I started exercising a little bit more, but not a whole lot more. But my body transformed basically on its own. I didn't change a lot about my routines. I didn't have a very strict diet before or after, and I didn't exercise, 3-4 hours a day every single day. I never did any of that. But when I had the visualization in my mind and I saw myself, I disregarded the old. I didn't see what the hologram was showing me. I saw what I wanted to see. And I kept that picture in my mind, and my body completely transformed within 90 days. You can actually go look at my transformation pictures that I've posted on Instagram. You can find that link in the description below. But I posted my transformation, my 90-day transformation from the picture before and the picture now. And it's insanely different, like insanely different without having to change my diet very much and without having to change my exercise routine very much. Everything just completely changed within 90 days. It was like amazing from having this psychological journey. By taking this psychological journey, every single time I looked in the mirror, and as I'm falling asleep, just a few nights a week, I would do this. I would work on this just a little bit, but it wasn't something that I was like dedicated to doing every single night. But it was more of using this minimum of energy and taking the shortest possible time with this manifestation. And that is the effortless way of least action. And it's a psychological journey that I was taking in my mind. Okay, so I disregarded the 3D. No matter what I saw in the mirror, what I was seeing, I didn't see that. I saw the picture that I had of what I wanted to look like. And so every time I looked in the mirror, that's what I saw. So that's what the hologram, the high-tech simulated game, had to give me. What I was seeing in my imagination, the hologram had to produce for me, because I was taking a psychological journey. I disregarded the three-dimensional world. I saw what I wanted to see. And when you do that, you project an entirely different world and you will be transformed. Sometimes you won't even have to do a lot in your three-dimensional world for that to change. So everything I'm teaching you in this video, I use myself. I have experienced all of this to work. All of it to work on dozens of occasions, hundreds of different occasions, thousands of different testimonials. I've seen this work. That's why I'm so passionate when I teach this, because I understand that this works because I've experienced it to work. So your journey from one state of consciousness to another is a psychological one. So to make the journey, you must employ the psychological equivalent of least action, and the psychological equivalent is a mere assumption. So the assumption is a psychological journey. The law of assumption is the internal world of making an assumption. A mere assumption is the psychological world. So the day you fully realize the power of assumption, you discover that it works in complete conformity with this principle. It works by means of attention minus effort. Because in the psychological world, you're not using effort. You don't have to use effort. You're traveling there psychologically. There's no blocks. You can travel anywhere. You're in the fourth dimension now. You're in the fifth dimension of time, space. Time doesn't exist in your imagination. There is no time. You can travel anywhere, any year, any month, anywhere in the world. You can travel like this instantly. You can travel instantly. So it works by means of attention minus effort. Thus, with action, with least action, through an assumption, you hurry without haste and reach your goal without effort in your imagination. That's the real world, because creation is finished. What you desire already exists, because the real world is your imagination. The real world is within you. That's the psychological world, and time doesn't exist there. There is no time. Everything is already created in the real world. The artificial world, time is an illusion. That you have to pass through all these things. You have to do all these things to get to this place. So the artificial world, which is your three-dimensional world, where time, you're just passing through time blocks, and it appears that everything is not created yet. That is not the real world. The real world is within you, where everything is already finished. All you have to do is connect with it by making a mere assumption. All right, so because creation is finished, what you desire already exists right now. It is excluded from view. It is only excluded from view because you can see only the contents of your own consciousness within the three-dimensional space, the hologram. Okay, so it is the function of an assumption to call back the excluded view and restore full vision. It is not the world, but your assumptions that change. An assumption brings the invisible into sight. It is nothing more nor less than seeing with the eye of God, i.e., the imagination. For the Lord seeth not as a man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. The Lord looketh from the psychological world. Man lives in the artificial world, or the hologram, and thinks that it's real, but the Lord does not. God does not. That's the imagination. He looks and creates from the psychological world. 1 Samuel 16:7. The heart is the primary organ of sense, hence the first cause of experience. So when you look on the heart, you are looking at your assumptions. Assumptions determine your experience. Watch your assumptions with all diligence. So be very careful of your inner dialogues, your inner talking, and make sure what you're affirming, the music you're listening to, the movies you're watching, everything you're doing, have that in your mind. And notice where your mind is going. What's your inner dialogue? What's your inner talking? What are you thinking about all the time when you're not conscious of it? Okay, bring it back and start being conscious of your thoughts all the time, because watch your assumptions with all diligence. For out of it are the issues of life. All the problems that you have in your life are based on your inner dialogue and based on those assumptions that you're making from that inner dialogue. So assumptions have the power of objective realization. So whatever assumption you have and you hold as true is going to be created and projected into the space of the hologram, of the high-tech simulated game that you're living in. So every event in the visible world is the result of an assumption or idea in the unseen world, which is the psychological world. The present moment is all important, for it is only in the present moment that our assumptions can be controlled. Right now, in the present moment, the present moment is now, and that's when change happens. That's the only moment that any change can happen. Okay, so the future must become the present in your mind if you would wisely operate the law of assumption. The future becomes the present when you imagine that you already are what you will be when your assumption is fulfilled. Exactly what I did with this most recent manifestation that I did with my body transformation. That's exactly what I did. The future becomes the present when you imagine that you already are what you will be when your assumption is fulfilled. So every time I looked in the mirror, I saw what I wanted to see. I disregarded everything else. I disregarded what was actually there because that's not the real world. And I understand that. I understand that this is a hologram. So I don't want to see that. I don't see that. I see what I want to see. Disregard circumstances until it is evolved and manifested into my world. So the end of longing should be being. The end of longing should be being. So if anything in your life is not going the way don't see it that way. See it the way you want to see it and persist in that assumption by taking a mere assumption, a psychological journey to the way that you want to see it and feel that end. Constantly feel the end. Take that psychological journey and feel it, okay? So translate your dream into being. Perpetual construction of future states without the consciousness of already being them, that is, picturing your desire without actually assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, is the fallacy of mirage of mankind. So without taking the mere assumption, without traveling psychologically to the end and feeling that, and being persistent feeling that, then that is a fallacy of mankind that's going to produce anything in your hologram. It's not going to change anything in your hologram until you actually visualize this, you feel this, you create this, you take a psychological journey to the end, and you disregard your three-dimensional world. And I also want to bring up the fact is understanding that the world that you're living in is a hologram. It's not real. It's not solid reality. It's pushed out. The psychological world within you is the real world, and everything is already finished. That's what you need to get through to yourself. That's the biggest hurdle to get through, is understanding that the world you're walking in, you're waking up to, you're interacting with is just a hologram. It's a high-tech simulated game that's being pushed out from you, from your inner dialogue, your feeling states. That's the psychological world. And understanding that is when you overcome everything. You overcome everything and you find true happiness and success, wealth, or whatever happiness is for you. Whether that is health, wealth, success, relationships. Disregard the three-dimensional world. Change who you are. Take the psychological journey. And that's what taking a psychological journey really does, is it changes your concept of yourself. So if you find that you're trying to manifest something and you're like, why isn't this coming true? Why isn't this coming true? This person is still doing this to me. This person is still doing, because you haven't changed you yet. You haven't taken the psychological journey and saw the end and living in that end. Because once you do that, your conception of yourself completely changes. You're no longer worried about this. You don't see that anymore. You don't see that this person's not doing what you want them to see. You only see what you want to see, because you understand that the three-dimensional world that you're interacting in is just an illusion. It's just a hologram being pushed out from you. So you know that anything that's not happening right is because you haven't made that psychological journey yet. You haven't persisted long enough in that journey, which leads me to one of my favorite quotes, which is, there is no one to change but self. There's no one to change but self, and you can change everything in your three-dimensional world, which is a hologram, by changing your inner dialogue, by taking a psychological journey, the effortless way, the principle of least action, going to the end, seeing that end, and believing in that end. All right, guys, I love you guys very much. That's the end of this video. Don't forget to give me one thing you are grateful for, or any other content you want me to cover in the future. And if you want to see my transformation pictures from my most recent manifestation, you can go to the link below. That is my Instagram account. You will find those transformation pictures posted there. All right, guys, I love you, and I will see you in the next one.